And tonight on the Daily Wrap, Hillary Clinton in the White House now calling for stricter gun control legislation in the wake of last week's shooting on a college campus in Oregon. But is it all just politics? Vice President Joe Biden accused of leaking his son's last wishes for him to be president to the press. We have our reaction, his reaction. And Donald Trump dipping slightly in the polls, says he ain't going anywhere for a long time. This is the Daily Wrap live from New York City. And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, along with my co-host Rick Unger, who will be heading off to the left coast, I understand.
Out with my fellow liberals on the left coast for a couple of days.
Really?
It's going to be great. I'm doing this event called Politicon, where you've got great people from entertainment and the political world all coming together, and it should be really awesome.
It's an insane event in terms of the people they have coming together.
I know.
Right?
I mean, between top comics, top political comics, and silly people like me who just talk out of my you-know-what for a living, we should have a heck of a good time.
And
October 9th and 10th, folks. If you're in L.A. or don't mind flying out there, I think you'll have a great time.
And culture will be,
and we'll be there.
Mr. Rick's beer pong partner, so that will be very interesting.
It won't be the first time.
No, it won't be the first time, that's true. To his right, she is a U.S. Navy Reserve officer, the national co-chair of Maverick PAC, and an emerging markets banker. Morgan, pronounce your last name for me correctly. Ortegas is here for the first time. You know, they always say measure twice, cut once. So now we've
Is that
we've
what
got
they always
right.
say?
That's what contractor school they told me that. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I see.
And finally, he's a commentator and media consultant, the former editor and publishing manager at The Blaze, and a former investment banker. He's got cash. Ben Weingarten is on his maiden voyage here as well. Two newbies tonight. May God have mercy on your souls. Let's get right to the Daily Download.
I hope and pray that I don't have to come out again during my tenure as president to offer my condolences to families in these circumstances. But based on my experience as president, I can't guarantee that. And that's terrible to say. And it can change.
Now, the White House put out that clip calling for less gun violence, hoping it would go viral since the college shooting in Oregon last week. The White House and other Democrats have done all they can to politicize stricter gun control. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton earlier this week took the opportunity to say if elected president, she would take on the NRA.
We have to close the loopholes. You know, we've got what's called the gun show loophole, and we've got what's now being called the Charleston loophole. We also must address the very serious problem of military-style weapons on our streets. We have got to keep guns out of the hands of people who should not have them. Ideally, what I would love to see is gun owners, responsible gun owners, hunters, form a different organization and take back the Second Amendment from these extremists.
Good to see she's no longer wearing orange. That was never a good look. Anyway, Clinton has threatened executive action if she becomes president to restrict gun sales. So has the White House.
So the president has frequently pushed his team to consider a range of executive actions that could more effectively keep guns out of the hands of criminals and others who shouldn't have access to them.
So firearm advocates are fighting back, including our next guest. Alan Gottlieb is the chairman of the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms and founder of the Second Amendment Foundation. Alan also authored many books on the topic and is editor of gunmag.com. Welcome to the show, Alan.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
So the left and some in the middle are saying that we have a major problem with guns in the wake of the recent mass shootings. Do we?
Well, anytime there's a tragedy, none of us are happy about it, and we'd like to do something about it. But what these people want to do is basically take away our Second Amendment rights. Hillary Clinton was just recently filmed at a fundraiser saying that the individual right to keep and bear arms that the Supreme Court has upheld should be changed and taken away, and if she's president, she'll appoint judges that will rip up and shred the Second Amendment. Barack Obama says he's for common sense gun control, and then points to countries like the United Kingdom and Australia and says we should have laws like theirs, where they banned guns and confiscated guns. That's not common sense to me. Likewise, Hillary Clinton talks about we need gun safety laws. Well, she knows nothing about gun safety, and none of these are gun safety laws. They're just using terminology to try and change and alter the debate and change the narrative away from what they really want, which is gun bans and gun confiscation.
Alan, it's Rick Unger. You know, once again, here we are following a mass shooting at a college, and we seem to be having the same old conversation. I'm certainly prepared to acknowledge that we're not going to see much of a change in gun laws, and even if we did, there would still be 300 million guns on the street. So I think it ends up being kind of a wasted conversation. At the same time, while I'm sympathetic to those who argue for more mental health, because that can't be a bad thing, I wonder if you have any ideas to share where we could take on this problem of mass killings without affecting the interest that you have in guns, without affecting any mental health we do have, except for making it better. Give me an original new idea to deal with this problem.
Well, I wish I had a real answer to solve this problem of mass shootings or anybody using, firearms and committing violent acts. But it's rather difficult, and it's rather expensive to come up with solutions, and Congress and legislators don't want to spend the money. They'd rather just pass a new law, thinking that, somehow, even though we have 22,500 laws that regulate the private ownership, use, and possession of firearms, somehow one more law is going to do the trick.
But again, you're back to the guns, Alan. I agree with you. I don't really, but I'm gonna for the sake of this discussion. Let's look at what else we can do to stop these mass shootings. The problem is you and I get into this conversation, as everybody does, never changes. We have the same conversation over and over and over again. Why aren't we putting, I'll tell you what, I'll bet you the NRA would be willing to contribute to a fund with the government to solve this problem without having to go after your gun rights. So why aren't we doing that?
We all would. The problem is, what do we do? And none of us really know. Like, let's look at the case we just had in Oregon. Here's somebody who's obviously mentally ill, but either wasn't getting treatment or wasn't any database to begin with, so there's no way you can know that he had the firearms or take them away from him. So how do you address that problem without taking away everybody else's rights? That's the problem. So we need to spend more time, obviously, on mental health and figuring out how to do this. But I haven't seen one solution out of the White House or out of Hillary Clinton that would really do it. Background checks aren't going to work. This person went through background checks and passed them. So did most of the other shooters in recent history. What are you going to put in, a waiting period? That wouldn't work because he had the guns for a long period of time before he did anything. So, I mean, if somebody came up with a real answer here, we'd be more than happy to talk about it. But all they want to do is give us solutions that don't solve the problem and take away our rights. That's a problem for us.
Well, Alan Gottlieb, we're low on time, but thanks for coming on tonight. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay, so you mumbled there during saying he's going back to the guns.
Problem. He doesn't have anything else to offer. And by the way, I agree with Alan. The White House doesn't, Hillary Clinton doesn't, and neither do the Republicans who are leadership. They don't, because all we ever do is have the same conversation
Can I stop you there?
Over again.
Hillary Clinton is asking that, at least at gun shows, that
She's
we have
doing
private.
the same thing that they're doing.
You don't think that's
Oh,
possible?
no, I'm all for it. I mean, this is what I said to Alan. It's not that I wouldn't like to see some greater gun regulation, but I recognize it doesn't stop these mass killings. So let's quit playing this game of talking about it. Let's actually get people to focus on a real solution. He didn't have one because he's never been asked to think about one. It's not easy, but wouldn't we be better off trying to come up with something?
Ben?
Well, it's tough to regulate away behaviors, and I think what we see here is that any move the government makes is going to have unintended or sometimes.
What if it's technology?
Well, there are some proposals on technology, like having locks on guns that are fingerprint locks and things of that nature. But the real problem is that legal gun owners are not the issue here. It's people who obtain guns illegally.
I agree.
And the real problem is that the places where there are the highest regulatory standards when it comes to being able to own a firearm are the places where there's the most gun violence. And so, we've seen the violence rate fall from 1993 through today, through incarceration, and also through.
Well, but you're right, but we haven't solved this mass murdering problem. You're absolutely right. Less gun deaths today than in a very long
49%
time.
since 1990.
But we're not seeing a solution to this problem, and we never had the conversation that I had to do it.
With the president and with Hillary Clinton threatening executive action, we're never going to come to a solution. I mean, this president has a history of threatening executive action with the Iran deal, whatever it is.
Yeah, we will have to leave it there, but that's exactly right, though. When you start saying already, before you even get a nomination, that you're going to go with executive action, that doesn't show much compromise now, does it? Anyway, coming up next, did Vice President Joe Biden leak his son's last wish for him to be president to the press? That's next.